Okay, this video is about quotes from Michael Crichton. It's from my quote book. Here's the quote book, Holy Grail of Wisdom Quotes by me, Pete Rogers. Michael Crichton is an American writer. He's a great writer. His genre especially was the suspense book, the thriller. He had graduated from Harvard College with a major in anthropology, then also from Harvard Medical School, and then he became a writer. One of the best of the century. He did not go on to do a residency. He read about 300 books a year, so he was a real voracious reader. And that's how, he's real smart. He's able to write on a wide variety of topics. He looked really good about 57, but he died not that much longer, about when he was 66 years of age, I think from a lymphoma. So I'm just going to go through some of those quotes. I was into him for a while, and I read like a whole bunch of his books, just about all of his major books. Okay, here's the first quote. Raising children is, in a sense, the reason society exists in the first place. It's the most important thing that happens, and it's the culmination of all the tools and language and social structure that has developed. I would say that's theoretical, okay? Ideally, things should be to optimize child development, but they're not. They're actually quite the opposite. The public schools are designed to make children conformist and stupid. They're not designed to help them. And there's a lot of other things in society. The recommending child formula rather than breastfeeding, forcing women to go back to work so fast. That's not in the interest of the children. Okay, next quote. Kids didn't have huge backpacks when I was their age. We didn't have backpacks at all. Now it seemed that all the kids had them. You saw little second graders bent over like Sherpas, dragging themselves through school doors under the weight of their backpacks. Some of the kids had their packs on rollers, hauling them like luggage at the airport. I didn't understand any of this. The world was becoming digital. Everything was smaller and lighter, but kids at school lugged more weight than ever. Yeah, he's pretty good about just describing things in an objective way. What I liked about Crichton was I felt his heart was in the right place. It was sort of like he wanted to make his big money commercially, and he did. But he would throw little things in there in his books to try to help the pros. That's why I liked him. Okay, Michael Crichton quotes continue. Everyone has an agenda except me. There's one problem with all the psychological knowledge that nobody can apply it to themselves. People can be incredibly astute about the shortcomings of their friends, their spouses, and children, but they have no insight into themselves at all. The same people who coldly and clear-eyed look about the world around them have nothing but fantasies about themselves. Psychological knowledge doesn't work if you look in a mirror. This bizarre fact, as far as I know, is unexplained. And he continues, perceiving the truth has always been a challenge to mankind, but in the disinformation age it takes on a special urgency. For the most part, members of our species simply repeat what they've been told, and they become upset if they are exposed to anything of a different view. The characteristic human trait is conformity. Humans are stubborn, self-destructive conformists, and sadly there's a lot of truth in that. That's human nature. Unfortunately, because I would see things and I would say, oh, gee, that country was so terrible to its people. How could they do that? But then one country after another will do the same thing. So that's kind of sad. Michael Crichton, the purpose of life is to stay alive. Watch any animal in nature, and all it tries to do is stay alive. Whenever any animal's behavior puts it out of touch with its realities, it becomes extinct. For our own species, evolution occurs mostly through our behavior. We innovate new behavior to adapt. Okay, now here's a good one from, I think it was from The Lost whatever. Let me see if I'll just reset the page so I can see it. From The Lost World. It could have been like from Jurassic Park. I think this is like a sequel or something maybe. Okay, among the higher animals, adaptive fitness was no longer transmitted to the next generation by DNA at all. It was now carried by teaching. Chimpanzees taught their young to collect termites with a stick. Zoo animals frequently could not care for their offspring because they had never seen it done. Velociraptors were among the most intelligent dinosaurs and the most ferocious. Both traits demanded behavioral control. Adaptive behavior was a kind of morality. It was a behavior that had evolved over many generations because it was found to succeed. But on this island, the velociraptors had been recreated in a genetics laboratory. Although their physical bodies were genetically determined, their behavior was not. These newly created raptors came into the world with no older animals to guide them, to show them proper raptor behavior. They were on their own, and that was just how they behaved. in a society without structure, without rules, without cooperation. They lived in an uncontrolled, every creature for himself world where the meanest and the nastiest survived and all the others died. Okay, so that was, I remember the velociraptors were just brutal, cruel animals. And it reminded me too of how people, like a lot of men, they grow up much better with a father figure around to kind of guide them on how a man should behave. And when boys grow up without a father figure in their raising, they're often impulsive, violent, and misbehaved. From having a responsible father, they learn about delayed gratification, about responsibility, about doing the best you can for your family. And those are valuable lessons. They're also more objective. I've seen a lot of guys raised only by their mothers, and they're spoiled because their mother gives them unconditional love. But a father doesn't. A father is much more objective, saying, look, you need to do your job. No one cares about you. If you don't do your job, you're not going to be welcome where you go. And you need to control yourself. You need to behave. Stop being so emotional. Stop being so impulsive. Those are typical conversations a father has with sons. You have to learn to listen to people. You have to learn to wait your turn. That's, easier said than done for a lot of young guys. Okay, we're going to continue with Michael Crichton quotes here, and he says, I took to haunting bookstores, buying $500, as much as $5,000 in modern money, about 300 books at a time, worth of books at a time, and carrying them off in cartons. So this is before the days of the internet. I would buy books on every conceivable subject, dinosaurs, hot air ballooning. Michael Crichton from Travels, where he's talking about himself. And then when telling a story, the author is always holding back something, some info to keep the reader interested. There is something sadistic about it. The author knows how it's going to turn out, and Hitchcock was accused of that. But that's part of being a good storyteller. I like the part about buying all the books. I could relate to that, wanting to have a big library and a comprehensive library on topics of interest. Okay, it's a topic for another day. Okay, Michael Crichton continues. The rational scientific reductionist method is not the only route to useful truth. Yep, he was good about that. Right now, scientists are in exactly the same position as Renaissance painters, commissioned to make the portrait the patron wants done. And if they're smart, they'll make sure the work subtly flatters the patron. Not overtly, but subtly. Okay. Let's be clear. The work of science has nothing whatever to do with consensus. Science requires only one investigator who happens to be right, which means that he or she has results that are verifiable by reference to the real world. In science, consensus is irrelevant. The greatest scientists in history are great precisely because they broke with consensus. Consensus is evoked only in situations where the science is not solid enough. Historically, the claim of consensus has been the first refuge of scoundrels. It is a way to avoid debate by claiming that the matter is already settled. Whenever you hear the consensus of scientists agree on something or other, reach for your wallet because you are being had. That reminds me like the consensus panel of doctors on the recommended drugs for treatment of hypertension. Okay, Michael Crichton on thinking. We live in a world of frightful givens. It is a given that you will behave like this, a given that you will care about that. No one thinks about the givens. Isn't it amazing? In the information society, nobody thinks. We expected to banish paper, but we actually banished thought from Jurassic Park. They are technicians. They don't have intelligence. They have what I call thintelligence. They think narrowly. They don't see the consequences. Can't think of anything outside their own immediate field. Michael Crichton, it takes enormous effort to avoid all theories and just see. If you don't know history, then you don't know anything. You are like a leaf that doesn't know it is part of a tree. Yeah, that's why I think they really, this is my opinion here, they really ought to teach the ancient Greeks, ancient Romans, and Renaissance to all kids in grade school and high school. Because when you learn the ancient Greeks, especially the ancient Greeks and ancient Romans, nobody has a dog in the fight, so nobody's going to get all emotional about it. But man, you see the good and bad of human behavior, mostly good with the Greeks, mostly bad with the Romans. Okay, Michael Crichton continues. The purpose of history is to explain the present, to say why the world around us is the way it is. History tells us what is important in our world and how it came to be. It tells us what is to be ignored or discarded. That is true power, profound power, the power to define a whole society. And I think that's why a lot of scumbags try to rewrite American history, because they want to get rid of America rather than tell the greatness of American history. And it was truly great. We had the smartest, wisest, most noble founding fathers, and they were very Christian. And there was an effort to sort of hide that from people, as you know, and that degrades the country. Okay, Michael Crichton continues. All your life, people will try to take away your accomplishments from you. Don't let them do it. Don't you take it away from yourself. Yeah, man, you got to be confident and speak up for yourself, because there's a good chance no one else will, so you better speak up for yourself. Okay, Michael Crichton continues. Then, in a flash of insight, I knew why. The only thing that matters is your experiences and your human relationships, the people that are part of your family and those people you care about, those people that care about you. Okay, then I just liked the way in his books he was so good at describing things. It's sort of a very highbrow, sophisticated articulation of events. He'd say the intensity of the behavior was diminishing. No human activity even comes close to the development of the human body. We can barely describe it, yet alone imitate it. Yeah, human development is incredibly complicated. That's why I always laugh when people think you don't need God to explain stuff. I'm like, yeah, right. You haven't studied, man. And once you've studied the brain, the eye, the clotting system, the immune system, embryology, it's like, holy shit, this is amazing. Michael Crichton continues, what about intellectual diversity? That's the most important kind of diversity, yeah. I like the question of colleges say they want diversity. Well, yeah, ask them how many conservative professors they have. They don't seem to care about that type of diversity. And diversity, a lot of this stuff, it's all fake. I'm actually a minority. I'm half Hispanic. My mother's a real off-the-boat Puerto Rican Hispanic, yet nobody in any Hispanic organization ever wants to talk to me. And it's because I'm smart. I'm not an easy-to-control person who can be trained as a puppet. Smart minorities are not welcome because they're not puppets. Okay, Gelman amnesia effect. Humans open a newspaper to an article on some subject that they know well. In Murray's case, it was physics, and in mine, it was show business. You see, the journalist has no understanding of either the facts or the issues. Often the article is so wrong, it actually reverses cause and effect. I call these wet streets cause rain stories. Papers are full of them. In any case, you read with exasperation the multiple errors in the story. Then you turn the paper to read something else, expecting it to somehow be more accurate. You turn the page and you forget what you know. So I thought that was pretty good. Okay, that's it for Michael Crichton. Hope you